Hello, hello, welcome back to another live, and we have a new manager in the building, our third in 13 days. Can you believe it? Well, it's more like our third in 8 days. Can you believe it? But we've got Michael Carrick in the building, officially announced, of course. Michael Carrick ready to start. The official statement here. United appoint Michael Carrick as head coach. Obviously, that's the big story that we're going to talk about today. Kind of talk through this, look at what we might see from his lineups and things like that. Some interesting thoughts on that, how he's going to play, what we can expect to see, a few quotes, and there might be something else coming. I'm sorry to be a tease on this, and I'm not going to get into too much detail. We'll talk about it a bit later, but something's happening. Things are happening. Ring the bell, you know. Things are happening a little later this week. We'll get back to that a little later on in today's live. I don't know yet what. And I'm waiting still, like any minute, waiting for messages, answers, things like that to come in that could offer some sort of explanation for what I'm hearing. But yeah, something's happening. We'll be back with that later on in the show. We'll talk about it a little bit more and all of that. But and we'll see if by then I hear anything else. But this is where we start. This is where we start. Is, of course, that Michael Carrick has today been announced as manager. Well, sorry, excuse me. We need to be very, very careful here. Michael Carrick has been announced as head coach to the end of the season. Not caretaker manager, not caretaker, not any of this. He's just been announced as head coach to the end of the season. That's all it is. It's not a signing. I'll tell you that much. It's not a signing. And not a signing. Definitely it's not a signing. There's no value in the market, my friends. It's not a signing. It's not that. It's bigger than that. Maybe. I'm sorry. I'm not being a tease on purpose. We'll get back to that a little later. We will get back to it a little later. I'm not being a teasing on purpose, but we will get back to that. But even the tickle in the back of my mind has me maybe feeling hopeful. You know, I said I don't need much to have some hope. I don't need much to have some hope. So we'll see. But look, I'm in. Okay, look, let me just say this, guys. I'm in on Michael Carrick because I've seen the future. And I'm happy. And I've seen the future. You know, I was listening to the Carrick chants and I was going, you know, this tune's really good. I finally see some future planning going on here. Okay, I finally see some long-term planning coming forward in the future. Because it's really easy to go from, you know, it's Carrick, you know, Mauricio Pochettino. I'm just saying, we don't even have to change our cadence. We don't have to do anything. We can just go from chanting Michael Carrick to Pochettino, and it's the same thing. It's perfect planning. It's beautiful. Finally, some forward thinking at this club. I'm very excited about that. But no, seriously. SJRS Wilcock to evolve. We'll see about that. Sorry, but it's true, isn't it? It is true. All this is going to do, hearing the Carrick chant, is just going to make me think of Pochettino for the next 5 months. Sorry. Careful in the UV chat, the aggregators. Did people not get that I was doing the Goldbridge bit, you know? They'll go Southgate. It'll be Southgate. After Ten Hag, and Rashford will survive. Did nobody remember that? Anyway, it's all good. It's not going to be Southgate, okay? I'm just going to say that very, very clear. It's not going to be Southgate. It's not going to be Southgate. It's not going to be Southgate. We will not go Southgate, all right? I'll repeat it 600 more times. I said it for years when people kept saying it was going to be Southgate. It's never been Southgate. It's never going to be Southgate. We're not getting Southgate. We're not setting up Southgate. Southgate's not involved. They don't even know who Southgate is, all right? He couldn't be further from the job, okay? I really hope it's not Southgate now. That'll look really stupid. But no, it's not. But look, all right, all jokes aside, Michael Carrick is in the building. Michael Carrick has started. He is in the job. I really, really do like Michael Carrick, okay? Genuinely, I really do love Michael Carrick. I was really disappointed when Solskjaer left. No. I was really, really disappointed. One of the saddest things that happened in recent years, I'm not even joking about this. When Solskjaer left, I wasn't that sad. Call me cold-hearted, all of that. I wasn't that sad. When Carrick left, I cried real tears. I'm serious. I'm not even joking. Like, obviously, I wasn't like sobbing and but like I was generally choked up watching when we heard Carrick leave and watching his interviews and thinking about it at the time and all of that. I genuinely choked me up because I really, really, really loved Michael Carrick. You know, as a player, as all of these things, one of my favorites forever, and I really, really, really like Michael Carrick. It was sad. It was a sad, sad moment when he took over from Solskjaer and he coached for a few games and what we saw in those games. And I was like, oh my God, what if Carrick is the answer? You know, what if Carrick is the answer? What if he could just stay here, you know, to the end? And I said, I think I remember that, saying we let the best coach go at the time. And I remember looking at that at the time and thinking, why did we lose Carrick? You know, and then we ended up with Ralph Rangnick, and I was like, oh boy. And we know how that all went over the rest of the season. I love Carrick. I really do. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful human being. His personality is he's very level. He's very sharp. He's a smart guy. And I really like him. So I'm very happy we've ended up at least at this conclusion, despite everything. And I'm determined to be more positive here moving forward, okay? We had a moment yesterday, guys. I had a moment yesterday after all the negativity, after everything that happened. There was a moment, I don't know if you saw this or not, but there was a moment last night where I realized that I needed to make a change in my life. You know what I mean? That I needed to make a change. You know, that I had to do something different. And it was a real wake up call for me, you know, and it was a real wake up call. It was serious. One of the most serious things that I've ever seen since I've been in this space, and it's this right here. I realized that, you know, if you look at what happened here, I was just scrolling through and it popped up on my feed and I said, oh no, this is bad. This is really, really, really bad. It was a wake-up call. And I said, you know what? It's time to move on. It's time to be positive again. It's time to be happy again. This isn't good. You know? This is not good. This is I need to be a better person. I need to change. I need real change, and so that starts today. We're back to positivity. Giving you, is this oh, I know who this is. I don't know why it stopped reading that. Sorry. Probably because I switched in the middle. Giving you a lot of shit on PBL, but I have to say your presentation skills have become top notch. Welcome to Post Amaram Club. D and B. Yeah, I know. That's who it was. Thank you for that. Appreciate it, though. I read it out for you, but thank you. So look, it's time to change. It's time to change. It's time to get back to being our positive self. It's time to get back to having some hope for the future. You know, I stared into the abyss and the abyss stared back, you know, and I said, you know what? we can't do this anymore. I don't want to struggle getting out of bed in the morning because I don't want to talk about this team. That's not it for me. That's not who I am. That's not who I am, and that's not who I want to be. So let's move on from that and talk about it. Michael Carrick in the building. He's here. He's ready. He's good to go. I think that as in terms of an interim coach, given that we cannot get a long-term coach, I think that this is the best choice that we have for the moment. I think that Michael Carrick knows how to set this team up really, really well in order to, be compact. He's worked with the players before, but I'll tell you, I was thinking this through, and I thought, is this a bad thing? He's worked with Shaw, he's worked with Dallow, he's worked with some of these guys who've been in the club before. Is this a bad thing? Is he going to favorite them? You know what I mean? Is he going to favor those players? And then I thought about it and thought, maybe not. Maybe it's the reverse. Maybe the opposite is the truth. Maybe the fact that he has worked with a number of these players before means he knows who the frauds are. He knows who are the criminals, as KG would call them. He knows who is going to stab you in the back and let you down. Maybe he does. Maybe he does know. And maybe that's what's going to help us here. So we'll see about that. So that's a bit of my hope here. I mean, certainly he will have had a view on certain people from back in the day. But he does have balls. He does have balls. He did drop Bruno. He's done a few things in the past that were interesting. Not to say we should drop Bruno now, not to say that Bruno's the issue, but correct, he does. I asked yesterday, I said, where's the cojones,
mate. Smiley face emoji.
Thank you, Iraqi. Thank you. He's got them. He's got big ones, and I believe that about him. And I think that that's necessary, and I think that matters. He dropped Ronnie as well. Yeah, he did some things in those few games. He did some things, and one of the things I'll say is we know he's not scared to be pragmatic as well. He's not scared to be pragmatic. He set us up very pragmatically, and especially that game against Chelsea, to make sure we could grind something out in that game. It was a crazy game. It was a tough game. We could have won that game as well. But yeah, I remember that and thinking, he can do this, and we kind of need that for the end of the season, because it's not just that we have to win games. With how tight the table is, we're going to need draws instead of losses. That's one of the things that I do think improved this year that we're going to need to keep seeing, is that when we don't win, we got to not lose. We got to draw. Those draws are worth points. I don't know if you guys if people realize this, but it was crazy to me to think about the fact that, the number of draws we have, which is a lot, right? We've got 8 draws in the league. Those 8 points are the difference between being in 15th position and where we are right now, those draws. So, we've got to make sure that we're still turning those losses into draws. We've got a very good rate of not losing games. In fact, we've lost the 4th fewest games in the league this year, and that is keeping us up the table to a degree, when we're not smashing people and winning games at a high rate. So we've got to make sure we do that as well, that we play pragmatic enough to stay up the table, to get those extra points, and to, more importantly as well, it's taking 2 points off of the opposition in those instances where they can't climb over us because it's just 1 point at a time. So that's an important part of this too. But let's take a look at what Mr. Carrick has said and the official announcement itself. It says, United is delighted to announce the appointment of Michael Carrick as head coach of the men's first team until the end of the season. He's played all this. He's won 5 Premier League titles. That's 4 more than Jason Wilcox, by the way. Look at all of these things. He won the Club World Cup. Nice, okay. I'm counting that now, huh? All right. Anyways, yes, he joined obviously in 2008, served under Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He led the club with distinction during his role as caretaker manager. He did indeed. He was head coach at Middlesbrough for 2.5 years. The highest of honors. He knows what it takes to succeed, the standards, etc., etc. And then obviously in terms of coaches, turns out Darren Fletcher is not taking up one of the coaching roles. He saw a couple games and said, I've had enough. I'm going back with the kids. That's the future of United. I think that's the right move for him. I think it's a great place for him to be, and all of that as well. Steve Holland, Jonathan Woodgate, Travis Binion, Johnny Evans, and Craig Mawson. Now, I know that, again, I think it was specifically Steve Holland people were talking about, obviously because he's worked with England, worked with Southgate and all that, making the, the distinction and such that, what that means. But I think that is a really, really good addition, again, saying that we do need to learn to be pragmatic. We do as well need to learn to make sure we have a team that doesn't lose games. We need to make sure we have a good team that can set up the way that it needs to be. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a very, very good idea. He worked at Chelsea as well. Yeah, so there's some connections there. But the other thing you'll have to say is that he knows a few of these players too. He knows a few of these players as well. He's really a guy who's coached for a lot of very pragmatic managers over the years that have done that kind of whatever it takes type of thing. I think that's true. I think that he's a good coach that has a pedigree of actual success and promoting some sort of stability. You know what I mean? But I also would say he's going to know quite a few of these English players we have in our side as well. He's going to be quite familiar with a few of them. I would very much not be surprised to see with Carrick, at the helm and the coach that's been experienced in England, to see, us head back into some kind of, pragmatic setup of that might have Maguire and Aiden Heaven and things like that in the team, which I would be in support of with Maguire back. I think that would help us a lot. Now, that's a big assumption, but it's just an interesting thing to think about too. The experiences that he has with them, I think he will rate. I think Maguire could end up being a big winner from this, coming back healthy at this point, and we might need him too. But yeah, let's. That's where we're at. He's a coach. I think the coaches and all that are fine. I think it's everything that we're doing right now, given the circumstances, which are less than ideal, and certainly, we've covered that to death and will not cover it anymore for now. This is good moves. Carrick is right. And as I shared the other day, the coach situation was a factor in consideration for why Carrick ended up being selected in the decision-making process, because he is somebody that can lead this team. He is somebody that is going to make an impact on the training ground right away. No bird's-eye view. He's going to get his hands dirty from day one. Get his arms deep in this club, and he knows where the muck is. You know what I mean? So I like the appointment. It's enough. Now we're gonna have to wait till Saturday. Obviously, we'll be playing City, and it's the early kickoff, 5:30 a.m. I don't know why they do this to me. But it'll be 5:30 a.m. on Saturday. It's an opportunity. It's obviously there's a chance here that any positivity dissipates, but for now, we look at it as an opportunity. Just show some ganache. You know what I mean? Show something in this that helps us get what we need. A draw at home, a hard-fought game, all I'm asking for on that kickoff time, and I think we could, and I think we'll be happy. I think we'll feel satisfied with the outcome, and that's my hopes that's what we can do, and I think Carrick gives us a good shot to do that. Okay, and obviously some players returning at the right times and things like that as well is going to help. One of the quotes here that Carrick said, which I hope doesn't go badly for him, because we know how people love to take the piss out of these types of things in the future. He said, "We want best in class." There's that old chestnut again, best in class. We want to be pushing boundaries, pushing limits, and always pushing for more, and certainly pushing building, the setup, and the layout. And I have to say the atmosphere within the building, it's hugely positive, really welcoming, being a really good environment to settle into already. Now, I think specifically at this point in time, he's talking about the Carrington ground itself, because I think he was discussing during the interview there, having been back to Carrington now for, I think, the first time since it's been renovated. And to be very, very clear, I think it's good to mention this because, you know, again, in all the chaos and the things that I've said, some of which have been very harsh and everything that's out there, I still firmly believe there's a lot of good work that has been done at this club since Ineos has come in. One of those is the training ground. One of them is Carrington. And, you know, everybody who comes into that new environment, you know, Michael Carrick, obviously, having been there before as a player and a manager, a coach and a manager temporarily, in the old training ground, coming into this atmosphere and saying, okay, we've got something to work for here. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's all good. It's all good. One sec. Okay, sorry. You know, so I think that's a good thing anyway. I think that's what he's talking about. I think it's a good sign. And I do think those things matter, and we haven't seen them yet. Well, we kind of have, because all else aside, being completely honest and being positive, we've seen progress this season. We've seen improvement this season. Yes, we've now seen a bit of chaos and a spanner throws in the works, and maybe it's just not been good enough, you know, for what we need and what we want. But perhaps it matters. You know what I mean? Perhaps it has mattered. Perhaps we don't know what it would have looked like if we hadn't done some of the things that were done. You know, we don't know. Maybe it is a factor. You know, it's hard to measure these types of things, but, you know, perhaps it's setting things up for the future. Perhaps, you know, Carrick turns things around a little bit and it shines a good light on whatever we're going to do for the next manager, and that these investments and things that we've done do pay off in the long haul, even if not directly in the short term. But yeah, look, it's exciting to have Carrick come in. Now, one of the things I do find kind of interesting, okay, I've watched a fair bit of Michael Carrick. Obviously, as I said, I really like Michael Carrick. And obviously there's tons of breakdowns out there with regards to his type of football. One of the things that you'll find, interestingly, because I wanted to talk about how he might line the team up and my personal thoughts on how he would set up the team. And this is what I think. I think, you know, his starting shape tends to be a 4-2-3-1, as we know, but is also, he's a manager that in the attacking sense, and in the you know, in the going forward sense, it's pretty much identical to Ruben Amorim, and I'll kind of explain that for a moment. Because let's take a look, and we will kind of talk through the way that he attacks and defends. Let's say this is the team we were to field, and I think this is the most likely team that we'll put out under Carrick. And obviously, you know, you could debate some of this at the back and things like that. But the way that Carrick plays in the attacking sense is he has one of his left tens build into the middle. He has a winger stay wide. One of the midfielders comes up to join in. One of his fullbacks goes up really, really high, and one of his fullbacks tends to tuck in. So when you look at this in this sense, on the ball, one of the reasons I think it has a degree of that actually makes me feel quite good about Michael Carrick in particular is because it has some similarities to our attacking patterns that we used to play under Amorim, and especially, I will say, the attacking patterns that we saw under actually last year when Bruno was in the forward line for Ruben Amorim rather than deeper in the midfield. Okay, so it makes a sort of a box in here. You have one winger out, and one fullback out. So very similar to, if you were to stick Ahmad here and Bruno here, in attack, it could look really similar to what we've seen this season. And to be fair, we've created quite a number of chances. So I think that has, potential. You know what I mean? If you had Ahmad here, this is what we've seen a lot of the year, right? So it's not dissimilar in patterns to that, but that's a very normal pattern in football. And, in the way that things are going to play. Now, how you get up the pitch, how you move it forward, it's certainly different. It's going to be, a little bit more central progressions and things like that, right? You're going to have a little bit more dropping in and a little bit more midfield play. And, I won't say again which other manager plays really similarly, but his chant is similar. We discussed him earlier in the show, but there's a lot of similarities. And it's one of the things that makes us go up, that makes me think there is a potential smooth transition moving forward that does make logical, natural sense in there. Certainly it's going to be different. Some of the ways that we've seen him defend when he set us up at United last time, he pulled us deep into a 4-4-2 like this and had it be a really composed 4-4-2 block. I could see it looking like this out of possession a lot, especially if he doesn't feel we're in a position to press. Playing a 4-4-2 mid-block was how he set us up before, is a bit of the way that he will pragmatically defend us. So I could see it, it transitioning in a lot of senses between, these kinds of setups, not dissimilar to what we've seen. And so hopefully my hope in that is that it's not really going to be what's the word for it? It's not going to be that unusual from a positional standpoint for a lot of these players. It's not. I think it's actually going to be fairly organic for a number of people. I also think this is like Mazraoui in possession, out of possession, don't really care. Sliding into a back three as the right center back is Mazraoui's best position. I think he could really own this spot moving forward, and I think that'll be great because he's really, really good in that kind of role. So that helps us. So we'll see it. Obviously, there's lots of differences in the way that you're gonna move the ball forward and things like that. One of the things I do wonder is, he had in Hayden Hackney a player who had extreme progressive technical abilities deep. Could we see Bruno deeper again? Because certainly we don't have that, and Kobbie Mainoo doesn't necessarily provide that. In an interview the other day, or earlier, he spoke about how he sees Mainoo as more of an attacker, not a holding midfielder. So I'll be slightly amused if we end up playing Mainoo as a 10 and Bruno deeper. And I think that's not necessarily a bad idea in the team. There's no midfield that's going to work for us, but one of the problems that I saw personally in the way that we set up under Fletcher in that game against Brighton is we did not have Bruno anywhere near the ball. And you can actually understand why he was moved to deeper, because he was so uninfluential in that game, which was sort of surprising, but also not surprising. One of the things I don't want to see, I really hope we don't see, is we saw a very weird press shape from Fletcher that we've seen before under Ten Hag. And it was this. It was the 4-2-4, but it was 4-2-4 with the midfield pressing high. I don't know if you guys saw this. I didn't do a tactical breakdown because I figured that Darren Fletcher would not be there. But essentially, we pressed in this shape. I don't understand this. This is what Ten Hag did. I don't know why we went back to it in that game against Brighton. Certainly, I don't expect Michael Carrick to do that. And the reason I bring this up specifically is when Solskjaer lost his job, we were doing this. We started pressing in a 4-2-4 shape that was very disorganized. There was a big gap between front and back, and that's why we were getting pumped week in and week out by Watford, by Liverpool, by everybody. We were getting pumped Okay. And as soon as Carrick took over in that interim role, he shut it down. He dropped the 4-2-4 into a 4-4-2.
Next season. Greater chance of winning that than being top 4/5 if we add in European.
I would agree with that.
Season.
I think Europa, it would be lovely to be in the Champions League, but I think Europa League is a better competition for us at the stage of where we are at. Certainly. But yeah, one of the big changes that Carrick made almost immediately when he took over from Ollie was changing the setup from the 4-2-4 press with these guys, everybody high in the midfield just getting destroyed, back into a pragmatic 4-2 mid block. And I think he's coached a long time for a while. He's coached in between. He's done a lot more than since then as well. But I think that will make him not naive, in that respect. I think he will be pragmatic in some of his shape. And I think that realistically, we're going to see, I think realistically, we're going to see a fairly pragmatic approach from Carrick. And I think that maybe people are expecting it to be constant high-flying football. I don't think so. I think Carrick will be quite pragmatic in how we play, and that's okay. And look, one of the reasons is not blaming Darren Fletcher. It's just that something you do have to understand and just state is that we have players afraid to be aggressive. Like Darren Fletcher said, they're fragile, they're not strong enough. And that's one of the things we did in the shape that we played under Amram was packing the middle a little bit more defensively. We weren't getting passed through the middle in the same ways. We had our issues, but there were different ones. As soon as we revert back to the 4 and try to press, you see it. Center backs are scared to step up. The line stays way too deep, and you end up with this giant donut in the midfield again. I think Carrick will solve that probably by dropping off our press a little bit, looking to hit on the break. I think you could see, mid-block with pressing triggers, exactly that. I think that's what we'll see. And in that instance, we could even see something like a little different, which would be, I think, something like this. This, to me, I'd be very interested to see Carrick run this kind of way where you end up with Mbumo as our true in-behind threat. As a forward, we even had a little bit of success with this earlier on. You think about the Chelsea game, drawing the red card. There was a few other moments we did things like this where, we can trigger it. We can play it up to Šeško to knock it down, and we can have Mbumo making those deep runs off of him to keep teams honest. I have a feeling we'll play some classic 4-2-4, 4-4-2 in that respect type of football. You could end up with Ahmad out here in that kind of situation, and it would be a little bit different. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see, what's going to happen here moving forward. But I want to see something. I just want to see something, and I think that Carrick will show us something. Does it mean that the players that I think necessarily we're going to finish high up in the table? No, I think Champions League is gone. But that's okay. Like somebody mentioned, maybe Europa League will be better for us, and maybe it will be. I don't care. As long as we're playing 2 games a week next year, I couldn't give a shit. As long as we're in those competitions, I couldn't care. If we get into Champions League and we get bounced in the league stage and then we're out of them again by New Year's, I'm not necessarily going to be happy that we got Champions League. I'd rather make a deep run in Europa League than get bounced in the early stages of Champions League while struggling in the Premier League because we still don't have the depth and the players to do it. So I'm not opposed to a Europa League run. I think it has merit. I think it has brilliance in that respect, that it can do something for us. I think that the league is going to be messy enough that if we can get to 58 to 60 points, we'll be in Conference or Europa. Because I just don't see enough ways to win. That's exactly it. One of the problems we've got here, guys, is you may not like to hear this, but we've already played 2 6-pointers, 2 3-pointers. In the second half of our season. It's a small thing, but it's bad.
Percent on Bailba.
0 for January, but maybe 60% for summer. We beat Wolves got the 3 points. We only got 1. We beat Burnley, got the 3 points. We only got 1. So we've already dropped 4 points compared to the first half of our league campaign. In the second half of our league campaign, I don't think we'll match our 31-point total. Okay, I don't think we're going to match our 31-point total, but we I think if we can get to 58 or something and get a little bit of luck, it'll be okay. And I think if Carrick does the basics, we'll play some grinded out football. We'll still be hard to beat, and we'll snatch some wins in games that maybe we don't expect to, you know. Sorry, Javier, but yeah, that's kind of my expectations for now. So, but I'm okay with that. It's enough for me, you know, to get on board. Europe is a necessity. Not being a downer on this, but discussing the financials, you know, it's going to be tight. Not discussing the financials, it's going to be tight. We really need Europe. We got to get Europa League from a budgetary standpoint in order to spend what we need to spend. And that'll be okay. My biggest worry right now is the players, that they may have given up. They may feel there's nothing to play for. They already have, in my eyes, mentality issues. You know, we've seen it time and time again. That's, I think, going to be Carrick's biggest challenge, not the tactics. I think the biggest challenge that he's going to have is how do we turn some of these guys into winners? You know, there's a few that I'm not worried about. But there's a number of guys that I would be concerned with. You know, how do you get them up for it to the maximal level? There's guys that are professionals that I'm not concerned about with this, and there's a lot that I'm not. I'm not concerned about the Maguires, the Delicts, the Mazrauis, the Senalamans, the Dorgus, the young guys who have something to prove. You know, I'm not concerned about those guys. I'm not concerned even about, funnily enough, I'm sorry to say this, I'm not even concerned about guys like Manuel Ugarte, who's going to want to still say, all right, well, new lease on life here. Can I earn my chance? But you know who's going to have a real rough go of it? Honestly, guys like Casemiro that are already struggling, that now are under a new manager who may not rate him after he'd convinced Ruben Amorim he was the guy. That's a challenge. I don't yet necessarily, well, we'll see what happens with Kobbie Mainoo. Bruno Fernandes looks a bit fed up. Mason Mount's professional. I'm not worried about him. I think Mbumo, you know, and Cunha and Šeško and these guys are here new enough that they'll be okay. But there's other guys. There's just it's more a cultural aspect, a mental fragility that I hope doesn't infect. You know what I mean? In terms of going forward and what happens. You know what I'm saying? So let's see. That I think that's going to be Mr. Carrick's biggest struggle, is dealing with that, not the tactics. I think that's the biggest struggle of every manager at this club, frankly, is how do I reach these kids? You know what I mean? How do I reach these kids? That's the most difficult part. How do you get them up for it? How do you get them to look at the season as not a waste? Because I'll tell you the problem we have now. With no cups left, the motivational aspect of playing for next season is all that's left, right? You're playing for next year. You're playing for the next manager. You're playing to be back in Europe next season. You're playing for that. You're not playing for anything now. You're playing for your future. Well, what about those who don't have a future? What are they playing for? There's nothing to play for in the present. Those are the ones I'm worried about, and I'm worried about how that attitude can infect. That's my concern, and I think that has to be noted. You need to see guys who are hungry for the future. The title wrong. Did my title not change because it was supposed to update? I saw that message. Just check why my title. Oh, so weird. Thanks for that.
Gold Bridge admit he wipe standing up shit smearage.
What? What did you just say? I'm not going to get into that. What did you just say? Okay. Okay. All right, that threw me off. I have no idea what I just heard. All right. Anyway, thank you for letting me know about that. I fixed the title. What the fuck was that? uh, Jesus Christ. Okay, yes, I've changed the title. Thank you for letting me know. I didn't realize that the title hadn't been updated when I scheduled it. You know, James, nothing will change. Like, you can't make Dallo perform, so I fear it will be a disaster, and I feel bad Carrick will take the blame. Well, look, again, we're on our positive arc here, all right? And is that possible? Sure. Should Carrick take the reaction? Absolutely not. I think that, generally speaking, as I've said before, my expectations are lower now for Carrick. You know what I mean? They're lower because it's a more difficult situation to come into now. I'm not, like I said yesterday, we need to have some integrity in our belief system, and we need to stand by some of the things we've said and not twist them around. I said I don't think the squad is good enough. I think that it's about good enough for Europe, and that's about it. I think that will be my same expectations for Carrick. But if it doesn't happen, there's only one person to blame, and there's only one person that should bear the head chop for that, and that would be Jason Wilcox. He's now responsible for this. There has to be more than one person responsible for these things, and the shit can't keep rolling downhill. It needs to go up. For Wilcox, I think his head is I think he's standing in front of the executioner's axe right now, and they haven't decided whether to swing it out, and they're going to read the charges at the end of the season and decide. Maybe sooner. We'll see. I don't think that the accountability stops with just the coach. And I think that we need to stand by that and look and say, look, this team needs improvement. It's not going to be Carrick's fault if we don't make it the rest of the season, if we don't reach our goals and our expectations. We have to hope that he can pull off something unexpected. But the responsibility and the accountability of having proper proper football structure, or supposed proper football structure, means that we need to have accountability above it. Responsibility doesn't end with one person. And they're all ultimately responsible for it in a different capacity. Now, if we can continue moving forward with proper structure, then changing coaches won't be a big deal. But I will say this. It should never again be done mid-season. And I mean that. Never. It should not be done mid-season, unless we are literally like on a massive decline headed for relegation. It shouldn't be done mid-season. But I can almost guarantee that will never happen without serious signs already there. So we need more strength during those summer months to be brave with our decisions before and after the end of seasons. And to be more decisive within the football structure moving forward, one way or another, right? If you appoint the next guy, you need to be damn sure you're giving him the season when he's in place, and that you have no doubt about it, and that there's no conflict going into a season. You cannot go into a season with doubts again. You never, ever do that. That's not football structure. That was really, really poor. That's unacceptable. Okay. So that's got to change. That's something that has to change. Because we're moving forward, we need to be out of the rebuild phase, and that means we can't be doing things like that. And look, I understand that there's other clubs that do it. Real Madrid sacked Xabi Alonso now mid-season. Are they going to be better after replacing him? I don't know. Just because Madrid do things over and over again doesn't make them successful. I think Madrid are an easy example of the fact that it's not that important to coach positive or negative, they're always going to be around the same level because of the squad and the way that they've built their team. So they can do it, but there's not a lot of evidence in their side that changing managers midseason makes a difference either, to be quite honest. So, it doesn't, there's the reality is, despite some other examples there, it's usually a bad thing to change managers midseason. And when you have to do it, I think you've already failed, I think when you have to do it, it means that you've either failed or you've ignored things, red flags and reasons that you should have made or come to some kind of decision earlier on. So moving forward, I'd like that to be a standard that the club hold itself to. Never enter a season with doubts. They did it under Ten Hag. They did it under Amorim. Can't happen. It can happen. I don't think. And I know there's examples where it works and things like that, but I don't think that that's important. I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing to look at. But look, Arteta, obviously an example of coming in mid-season. Okay, fine. It's not like it worked. Their next season was really, really bad. If they brought in Arteta in the summer, maybe it would have made a difference. But you also have to bear in mind there was COVID and all sorts of stuff that interfered that makes it sound a lot different. So that's a thing that needs to be. So look, as to the other thing that I mentioned, Manchester United players told Champions League is the aim when informed of Ruben Amorim's departure by Jason Wilcox. A challenge for Michael Carrick to achieve switching formations, not straight forward. Sir Alex backed his appointment. As I said, I shared this in Patreon a week ago. On the 7th of January, I shared this. And I shared it. And then I tweeted it yesterday and posted about it, that the belief was Champions League. And I already ranted on this, so I'm not going to do the negative thing today. We discussed this yesterday, but there you have it, explicit confirmation. Jason Wilcox believes that we can get Champions League. So, like I said, with regards to accountability, it needs to be on his head when we don't. I hope we do, but it needs to be on his head. I think that they seriously misestimated this club. That when you enter that into the equation, that Champions League is the qualification, is the target, it explains a lot more, right? It explains a lot more why, you'd be mad at Ruben Amorim. Now, again, I think that it's a really I think it's a really, really poor misassessment of where this club is at today, because I'm asking right now, which 4 clubs is it better than? Which 5 clubs is it better than? Which 5 clubs is our squad better than? Which 5 clubs is our squad better than? And then factor in things like continuity, factor in things like them having permanent managers into place, It's not better than City's, Arsenal's, or Liverpool's. We know that. So our highest, then you're thinking, all right, well, that takes 1, 2, and 3 out of the picture. Aston Villa, well, they've had Emery in place for 4 years now, 5 years now. They've invested a lot of money. They have a really well-built squad, and they're probably still investing in January. They're quite a good team. They have a much better team than we do on balance, okay? So there's another one. And then you look at Chelsea and you go, okay, Chelsea don't have the most robust first 11. They don't have the best team on earth, but they have a team that's pretty much geared towards getting qualification for Champions League every single year. It's very, very deep. They have tons of players to choose from, tons of options, and a very, very strong midfield. So I look at it and I just go, not being able to, even Newcastle finished above us most years recently, have they not? So I would be concerned with that as well. So look, I think that's a very, very bold claim, and I think that it's a misestimation of where the club is at, and I think that that's part of what's led to poor decision making processes at this point in time. But hey, that's is what it is. I think that if that were the case, then you really should be signing some players in January and reinforcing this squad. I think certainly that we had a better chance by keeping the manager and letting him do what he was doing than making a change mid-season. But time will tell. We won't know. At the end of the season, will tell us that. Again, I think that goals and aims are important, but I think that being realistic is more important, because when you're responsible for making proper decisions, you have to be realistic about where you're at. Okay? So, yeah. A few weeks ago, I said this squad is capable of Champions League. Yes, I did. When we had Ruben Amorim, before we changed managers mid-season, before we threw a whole bomb into the entire setup. I think that it gave us a better chance keeping him than changing managers mid-year, which is a really, really low success rate. Really, really low success rate. Since that time, we've drawn to Burnley, dropped 2 points versus earlier in the season, and been knocked out of Brighton. So far, it's the chaos and the problems and all of that. We definitely do not have a better squad than Villa or Chelsea. That's just the reality of the situation. I'll once again refer to this, okay? Look at our bench. Look at our bench in these games. You look at our bench and the players that we have on the pitch, come back from an ACL injury, way further on. If anything, at best, maybe a few of our front three are competitive with these teams, but we just don't have a better team. We just don't. Position by position, you're taking most of their team over ours. Their entire midfield, Morgan Rogers, probably Watkins, the fullbacks. This is a cup game too. No, this was Spurs. Okay. Martinez at this point in time is still better. We just don't have a better team. Sorry to say. We just don't have a better team. Realistically. Yeah, I said if we make signings in January, then we can reach Champions League. Correct. That's exactly my point. The biggest factor is that giant hole in the midfield. Unless we add to that, I don't think we have a chance in that respect. Okay. But I'm being realistic. But look, remember we heard from Paul Scholes saying that seemingly we thought it was a couple players away. Well, that explains a lot. That explains a lot when you look at it. It's all adding up. So, but it's whatever, man. It's whatever. Look, regardless, Jason Wilcox has come out and laid his cards on the line and said, this is a team that should get Champions League. This is a team that should get Champions League. He said that. He's changed managers on that basis. He said that it's a team good enough without signings to get Champions League. So he will be judged accordingly on that. And I think that right now, it's not looking good for him. But that'll be his judgment. Now, what else is there to think about then? So obviously earlier on in the show, like I said, right at the beginning, I did hint at something there. I don't have answers back to be able to give, enough detail on this. I don't have answers to give detail on this front as of yet as to what's going on. But just let's keep an eye on stuff later in the week, okay? Keep an eye on some stuff later in the week because there are things happening. I don't know what it is yet. There's a chance it's big, though. and I don't know what it is. I really, really don't. And there's no further detail I can get at the moment. There's other things that I do know about this that I cannot share right now, but I'm looking into it. Perhaps tomorrow I will have more to say about this. There's your hook to come back tomorrow. No, but seriously, I will hope to have more on this tomorrow. But I do believe there's something substantial happening in the next few days. And I don't know what or what the outcome is yet. But it's certainly related to the owners. Whether it's to do with ownership, whether it's to do with stadium, or whether it's to do with, restructures at the executive level, I don't know. I can only at the moment speculate. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens there in the next few days. But look, I say these things and I apologize, but sometimes that's all I can give you at this point in time. Sometimes that's all I can give you at this point in time. So we'll have to keep an eye out. We'll have to keep an eye out later on in the week for what happens next. And if there's anything significant happening, okay. But yeah, we'll see. I've had this a couple of times, and one of the times it was really, really, really big. Like it turned into a really, really big story. So, yeah, that's what we've got for now. But I don't know. If I knew, I would tell you. If I knew what it was, I would tell you. That's the truth of it. Folks is called blue ball. Hey, I've got them too. I've got to dig in. I've got to dig in just as much as you guys do to figure it out. That's how this works sometimes. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. And if it turns into nothing, I apologize. But I'll hopefully find out in the next bit of time. I have some hopes though that it could be something. That where we're either going to find out, something further. But give me some time to figure it out. Look, I like to tell you guys rather than say nothing because that's just what I like to do. You know what I mean? I like to tell you guys rather than say nothing because I think it's more fun. I think it's part of the fun of what I do with you guys on this basis is on these day-to-day lives, look at kind of the process of news and what comes out and what happens, and this is one of those things. I think it's kind of fun. I could sit on it and say nothing and then wait and maybe it turns into something, maybe it doesn't, but I think it would be more fun, I think it's more fun to tell you guys something's going on, and that I'm digging into it because maybe there's a big story coming or something like that, and yeah, that's what I like to do. So we'll see, okay? I don't think it's the mid-season friendly. I don't think it's that. Let's sources close to Solskjaer believe he had the support of Wilcox and Barada as the most senior figures within sporting department, but we're unsure he had as much backing from the club's ownership, the Glazer family and Ratcliffe. United insists that at no point did anybody with the ownership challenge Wilcox's recommendation to appoint Carrick, which had to be a technically led decision. Solskjaer was informed by Wilcox on Monday that he hadn't been chosen. Though naturally disappointed, sources say his preference would have been to take the job again on a permanent basis, as I said before, working for the long term rather than only the few months until summer. He believes United require a major rebuild to close the gap to the Premier League's elite, point he made to the club's executives during the conversation. So at least Solskjaer's right. That I'm almost slightly worried that we didn't go with him because he said we needed a rebuild. And as we know, apparently it's believed that we're a top 4 club already. Almost worries me a little, but we'll see. The task for Carrick and his coaches is clear: to deliver the Champions League qualifications the club executives deemed so crucial. Okay. Well, there you have it. Yeah, Ollie put himself out of the job by wanting permanent. But yeah, I worry that a little bit. You can, Joseph, reach out to me on Twitter if you can. If you have something you want to share, reach out to me on Twitter. If you can, just at Muppeteers. It's just me, So request, I'll answer you there. But look, I am slightly worried about that. If they took an aversion to Solskjaer telling us the truth. Look, I don't think Solskjaer is the right coach, but I do think and have always said that he does have a very good eye for management, for top-down management, for seeing through the big picture. He's always said he'd like to take that step up into a role like that as well. Him saying, look, the club needs a rebuild, and the gap between it and the big teams is real, is a truth that I wish they would take on board, because I think it's got a lot more truth than we're in top 4 already, and we're good enough to be a top 4 team already. I think it's accepting a lot more reality than that. That doesn't mean that I think Ollie should have got the job. I think it should be Michael Carrick. I think it's the right choice. But I am a little concerned if that's the reason why he didn't get it. You know what I mean? If Carrick is hired on the basis that there's genuine belief we'll get Champions League, then a little scary. I hope we do. God, I would love to be wrong about my current feelings and right about my earlier feelings, which is that these guys know what they're doing and that these guys are really good, and that all my stress for the last 2 weeks was for naught, and that they made the right call. They kicked out the bad man, Ruben Amorim. He's the wrong guy, holding us back, and that Carrick launches us up the table into the Champions League positions. I really hope I was wrong, because that'll mean I was right in my original assessment of them, and that would be the best thing for the club, most importantly. So, yeah. But otherwise, maybe look to Ollie for an executive position at the end of the season, because he might have a better read on where we're at. Okay. All right, guys. I think that'll do it for today. Again, I appreciate you all being here. You can watch the podcast with Phil earlier. Like I said, moving forward, lots more positivity on the way. Grounded positivity, but positivity nonetheless. And let's hope we can push forward into the future. Okay? Thank you for watching, guys. I'll be back. I'll give you an update as quick as possible if I do hear something that I can share further on this potential news. The news before the news. The news is that there is news, maybe. The announcement of the announcement of the announcement of something, perhaps. So we'll do that. You join the Discord by doing discord.gg/Muppeteers. There's links below for Patreon, and there's links there and all that, okay? All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out today. I appreciate you all. I will catch you all tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your evenings. Carrick is here. And the future, could it be bright? Thank you all. See you later, everybody. Goodbye.